I hope everyone is doing well. Okay, see, I did like a slow, music zoning out just a second. So yeah, I'm here, and my technology still skills still suck. Okay, so uh, I am just doing a couple of things in the background, and then we're gonna get started. And I hope everyone is doing great and having a wonderful week so far. And I just realized that I did not put, I did not, okay, I don't know if my ears have gotten smaller because my stupid buds keep falling out. Anyways, okay. All right, we'll see how this goes. Anyways, I hope everyone is doing well today, and thank you for joining me, whether it's now live or during the replay, if you're catching the replay later on. Yeah, I got my sewing machine back here and stuff, and I'm not trying to hide it right now, so whatever. Anyways, I hope everyone is doing good. My name is Yolanda. If you're trying to figure out why are you seeing me right now, who is this person? My name is Yolanda. I am locating cozy, and this is a broad chat. So I want to thank everyone for joining me now or in the future. I appreciate the support because I always have something very insightful and sometimes comedic to talk to say or share, and I thank you. So make sure that you do like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you will know whenever I have something very intelligent or fun to share with you. Right? Right. So let's see what is going on. There's a lot of things going on, and I'm going to do my whole spiel about the things that you need to subscribe to and all that stuff at some point throughout this conversation. I will do my shameless plugs, and yeah, so you guys already know this. But for now, let's go ahead and get the party started. Today, I have a wonderful guest on, and I met her back at the beginning of 2024, and we actually have stayed in contact all this time. So, Dara, how you doing, love?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. I am doing good. I have been very, very busy and very thankful for that. And and then I actually made time to schedule because I've been trying to get you on for a while, but life was just life and happening.
That
So
happens.
I patiently waited for this great opportunity, and here you are. So it happened at the right time.
That was it. This timing was actually really good because I am done with my traveling for the year and I'm just sitting
Okay.
tight at home. So this is perfect.
Okay. So just in case people don't know, and it's like people are like, well, how come you're not following your format, Yolanda? Oh, you know how I roll. I just, you know what, we're having conversation. First of all, where are you? Where are you
Um,
at, Dara?
I am in Mexico City. This is my home. This is where I've been living now for going on 3 years. Mexico
Okay,
City, Mexico.
wow. Okay, and that's where I met you for the first time when I was in Mexico for 2 months. I did like 2 months of pet sits in Mexico, had never been there. And when I came to Mexico City, I had the opportunity. I had heard your name because, Rashida had been mentioning you and like you would join her lives. And just through natural progression, I kept
Hmm.
hearing this person, Dara. So to actually meet you in person was really pretty awesome. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we
We
now
we
best
had
friends.
we had a little get together through the illustrious Rashida Dow, and I'm trying to think. That was the broadcast of an opera that we thought was going to
uh,
be live? Was it?
it
Uh,
It was an opera that we thought was because it was an Italian opera that we thought it was going to be live from the United States, but it was actually so we thought
it
it
was
was
like
going to be in
simul.
English.
It was like
Yeah, it was simulcast.
simulcast, but it was in wasn't it in Spanish? I don't know. It was a whole thing, but it was interesting. And
Hmm.
we all got to meet, and then we went out afterwards, of course, as we do for drinks and nibbles
Yeah,
and
and the waiter in
giggles
Mexico was
and
trying to get us drunk, giving us mezcal. Yeah,
yes,
afterwards at
yes,
the very
yes.
end. Yeah.
Exactly. And we exchanged information. And then I guess it was it later? Yeah, it was later that
May
year.
Yeah, May 28th. I actually went on my Airbnb experiences to check it out, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it was later that year. I had I'd scheduled a painting retreat with a woman that I followed who she's an abstract painter on in Italy. And
Hmm.
I figured, well, I'm going all the way to Italy. Let's make a whole trip out of it. And I've always had a soft spot for Spain. So I said, well, let me go spend a few weeks in Spain and hit some spots where I have always wanted to visit. And I made a whirlwind tour through Spain, and my first stop was Madrid, and I knew that's where you were. So I looked you up, and you and I hung out. I think you met me my first night or second night there. We hooked up for drinks and you kind of walked me around, and then you joined me on one of the things that I love to do, which is to go look at art. And we did an Airbnb
Yes,
experience, and met up with a local artist there who knew a lot of art gallery owners. So we had like this personalized art gallery
yes.
tour through Madrid, which was fabulous. I think you
And it was
liked it.
just the two of us. Oh yeah. Oh,
It
I
was just
loved it. Oh yeah.
Okay,
It was just the
I
two of
didn't
us.
think you were just humoring me. Um,
Oh, no, no,
but
no. That's my jam.
it was fabulous. Yeah, and then we've stayed in touch ever since, and I
Yeah.
continued on my way through Spain, and then ended up meeting up with this wonderful bunch of women in Italy, and painted my little heart out for a week before making my way back to Mexico City.
You were doing things. Yeah, that was a wonderful experience. It's like I don't know art or sculptures and all this. I don't know all that. I just know it's pretty and I like it. Yeah, so I just appreciate the beauty of it and the experience. And yeah, that was such a wonderful personal experience to be in Madrid and have this lady, and we were just the only two. And so
Hmm.
yeah, just to have that whole like personalized touch. And yeah, she was
Yes.
very nice. Her name was Maria. And so yeah,
Yep.
I remember.
And
Yeah.
because I after you had to bail that day, because
Mhm.
my ADHD, once I get locked in on something, I'm locked in.
Yeah,
So
because I
I
was pet
continued.
sitting, so I had to go back to the home and take care of the
Yes.
dog. Yeah.
Yep, that's it exactly. So then I ended up going back with her to her studio and gallery and
Mhm.
seeing her art and where she was making it and all that kind of stuff. So we spent the day, like a few more hours, kind of hanging out together, which was super cool.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and that's sort of the thing about art, and this is like relatively new to me in my life, because I would go to art, I would go to museums, as a sort of cultural touch point when I would travel, like many people, right? And it was just like,
Mhm.
oh, that's pretty, I like that, or I've seen that in a book. Never really had any particular meaning to me. um but now, um art and creativity has a completely different role in my life, and like one that I never would have imagined. Like, I
Mhm.
kind of feel like I'm a different person than I was for like the majority of my life. Is kind of surreal, I guess is the best way to put it. But at the end of the day, just if you like to look at it and it makes you feel good to do so, that's all that matters. But
Yes.
we'll talk more about that, as we get deeper
Yes.
into the conversation.
So, and that's the truth and stuff, because like even when I was back in the States, if I heard about an art gallery or something, or if the museum had like a new display or some kind of event that was going on, I'm there. I'm not going to
Hmm.
be like, oh, and I can see by the textures, that they were trying to speak to me in this language. I don't know nothing about all that. I just know I,
Right.
I like it. That's it. So, anyways,
Listen,
yes, we were.
I would go for the wine. You know what I mean? Like, I went for the ambiance. Like, if there was
Hmm.
something special, and there were hors d'oeuvres, and and there was bubbly, and there was a chance to wear, some new boots I got. There was,
Yes.
because I spent a lot of my adult life, as although I was a very much a nomad living in the US. So it's not it it's a surprise, but not a surprise. Shouldn't be a
Hmm.
surprise that I ended up moving outside the US. It surprised me. But most of my adult life I spent in DC, and DC, not what it used to be, but at one time was, it was a big cultural hub for such a small area, such a
Hmm.
small geographic footprint. The museums would often have like these late night events and, you know, um, you know, wine tasting collaborations with different art galleries. And so I was always at those. Um, but it was more for the chit chat and the
Yeah.
wine, very often more so than it was about the art. Whereas
Yeah.
now, I sneak out to go look at art by myself because I suspect that people are not going to want to be with me while I look at a piece of art, you know, looking at the brush strokes and the
Okay.
thickness of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
paint for, an extended period of time. Like, I imagine that's going to be boring looking at the back of my head while I do that.
No, but if somebody can appreciate it, like I know that, and again, we're not in complete format tonight. So if anybody's coming in or watching the replay and they're like, "This is not how she usually does it," so what? It's okay. So, anyways,
Don't let me derail you though. So, because I will. So we can we
I
can
got,
we can go back to your original
I
format
got
if
my
you want.
outline. It'll come up. It'll come up soon.
Okay.
But I was gonna
Okay.
say that when I was in Mexico City, well, the one time, so when I was there, and they had like the some kind of like the something event where like there were all the galleries throughout the city that you can go to, and that's how I had my first uh mezcal whiskey sour, your mezcal sour. Yeah, because I came into one of these gallery events. There was like the city was doing it, so you can go to like all these different galleries throughout the city. I forgot, but it's like some kind of
It
art event that happens in Mexico City.
maybe Zonomaco.
Okay, we're gonna go with that. I don't know if it's an
Listen,
annual event.
listen. That is an annual event, but I will say it's Mexico City, baby. It could have been anything. Every day there is something in a
Yeah,
city
it was
this
really
big
cool.
with as many museums as there are. Arguably number two in the world for the number of museums, because there's some random behind
Yeah,
museums here. Um,
I did not touch on like a tenth of what was probably there. Yeah.
oh, I see that Picky Girl Travels the World has joined us. I thought I was a keeper of random knowledge. Uh, I have I have lifelong friends who have referred to me as Cliff Clavin from Cheers. If you remember Cliff Clavin from Cheers,
Yes.
who knew everything, Adelia, I bow down. Okay. Um, I mean, maybe in certain areas, but Adelia has me beat. Could name all. I mean, I think there's a museum here of broken dreams.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there's a museum for everything here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yes, this is a place. If you are a museum lover, if you love art, if you love all things sort of eclectic collectibles, museum of stamps, museum. I mean, there's creepy
Museum, everything.
dolls.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's how it is. Like wherever I go. So like when I just came back from Lisbon, I want to hit up the thrift stores and I want to go to the find some like art galleries or museums. That's
Mm,
if I see one and I'm like, oh, they got art, I'm going in and just to
hmm.
enjoy it, yeah, and appreciate it. Definitely, definitely.
Yeah,
And so what did she say? Oh, okay. I
I
just
think
saw
she's.
that part and
I think
everything. She
she's
was
laughing
laughing
at the
at it. I
fact.
thought she was saying something else and stuff, um,
Nah.
yeah, we'll get back to that in just a minute. I do want to go back and just say hello. Aileen, thank you for joining. I do appreciate
Hi.
you. Hey, sweetie, get together. So before we get started, I always have to ask. It is important that we acknowledge the power within ourselves and that we
Ooh.
get to locate our own cozy. So please do share. How have you located your cozy lately? What have you done that's just for you, that has just brought you joy? Whether it was 5 minutes or an hour or just like walking around the block or, bought some new perfume. I don't know. What have you done?
Girl, my whole life is cozy. My whole life is cozy. It is so ridiculous. Tomorrow's my birthday, for instance, and a friend was asking me, we were kind of chatting about, are you doing? No, I'm not really doing anything for my birthday. It's not that big of a deal. And it's like, oh, you're not enthusiastic. I I celebrate
You
every
see my
day
face
because
right now. I'm like, I know, but I'm like, yes,
I
it is. But
celebrate
anyway,
every day because every every day I do whatever I want and
yeah.
nothing I don't want to do. I I retired at 51 and gave away everything and moved to Mexico City. And I don't do nothing I don't want to do. So what's a birthday celebration that beats that? But no, to answer your question
I
more
get that.
specifically, um, uh, I'm trying to think of what I pick. Um,
You know what? I get that because I asked this question, and you know what? And I'm not trying to cut you off, but I'm just going to say this because I asked this question on every single one of my videos, and sometimes I'm like, girl, I don't know, because I have to answer that question myself, and I'm like, I slept in today. I got up at 8 o'clock. That's wild for me. Okay. I got to be, gosh, I know you're not a morning person. Okay.
I mean, and that's the thing. Every day it could be different.
Yes. And happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yes.
Um, every day could be something different.
It's a joy. It's just
Okay,
living in joy.
yeah. I mean, I'd probably say um the thing I've been enjoying lately is I was going to say something silly like this is silly because I was going to say I allowed myself to indulge in some art supply purchases on my most recent trip. I took a cruise to
Okay.
Alaska, but that's a lie. That's a lie because I don't ever stop myself from indulging in purchasing art supplies when I travel. Because here's the thing: when I travel, there's two things that I do. I buy art supplies and I buy perfumes.
Okay.
Those are two things I do when I travel. So every trip has a pile of art supplies and at least 2 to 3 perfumes tied to each trip.
Okay.
Those are the things that I love. So I was gonna say, so I allowed myself. I always allow myself, but
You know what? How
I'm
about this?
wearing
You
one
allowed
today.
yourself another day. Yeah.
I'm
And
wearing one today.
what is
I'm
it?
wearing an Amsterdam perfume today for this discussion.
Okay. How you like me now? Okay.
It smells wonderful.
Well, nice. And again, for me, because I'm always like, I ask this question, and sometimes I don't have an answer, but I'm like, you know what, girl? I've been walking, it's nothing, sometimes it's not even intentional. It's just that
Mhm.
something that maybe you just appreciate. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I will say this, one of the things, there's a couple of things that I try to do every day, and I'm not as rigorous about it now as I was at one point in my life. I had a very thorough morning routine at the end of my career
Hmm.
because I was hanging on by the thinnest of threads. I mean, by the thinnest of threads. I now know that that was severe work burnout, perfectionism, um, ADHD. I knew that. I knew that.
Hmm.
ADHD, the political, racial climate of the US,
Hmm.
um, and freaking perimenopause. I know that now, right? It was all of those things combined.
Yeah.
But I used to, oh, and a super stressful job. I used to wake up out of just sheer nervous, panicky energy most mornings by 4:45. I would take my dog out. It would be pitch black. Bring her back in. I would get back in the bed with a cup of coffee, and I would have to spend a good hour and a half, hour and a half in the bed in my little morning
Hmm.
ritual just to be able to get out the bed and walk across the hall to my home office to start my day.
Hmm.
And it would be, I had this thing called the productivity planner. First of all, I will never use the word productivity. I hate the word productivity. We can talk about that. I'm not a machine.
Okay.
F productivity, that, that we can have a whole conversation about that, because to me that
I got
flies in the
goals.
face, that flies in the face of, and listen, I mean, again, this is a very personal perspective because of how I think I took it to heart in a certain way and allowed it to overcome my life.
Okay.
Um, so, and to me, it kind of juxtaposed this sort of creativity as a act of rebellion in some way. But anyway, we'll go there, I'm sure. But so this productivity, 5-minute productivity planner, I think it's called. I still have one and I still use it today. I said I'm not going to buy it anymore because I just use one of my empty journals to do it. But it's called like the 5-minute journal. And so that would be the first thing I would do every morning. You write down 3 things you're grateful for. And those mornings, because I would wake up at 4:45 or so, and usually I would wake up and my heart would be racing. And my first thought, and this is a horrible thing to think. My first thought every morning, I would wake up and my first thought was, can I curse?
Yeah. Yes, you're fine.
Okay. My first thought every morning that I woke up, my heart racing, and then I would just figure out where I was fuck, every morning. That is horrible. That your first waking thought is fuck.
Yeah.
And it would, because it would be like, fuck, I got to do it again. Fuck, I'm still here, right? And of course, this was the Monday through Friday situation. And then on
Yeah.
Sundays, it was like, oh fuck, it's Sunday. Tomorrow I got to do it again, right? So I only got
Sundays
break.
were my worst. I had the worst anxiety. The worst anxiety on
Exactly.
Sunday evenings. I couldn't sleep at night. Yeah, it was horrible. Oh my
It was
god.
horrible. So I would take the dog out, make my coffee. I'd get back in the bed. I'd write my 5-minute journal. First thing was 3 things I'm grateful for. And I'd sit there and I had to think. And some days, number one would be,
You had to
love
really
these
think on it.
sheets. Love these sheets. Like it, right? And then it would
Something very
be,
topical. Something very topical.
it
Yeah.
would be the smallest thing, but I would search for it because I would have to try to find something to combat that immediate subconscious negative thought that I had, right? So I'd write down the 3 things I'm grateful for. I'd search for those 3 grateful things. Then I think it was, oh, well, it's for the 3 things you're grateful for. Then it's like, what would make 3 things that would make today great? And I would try to make them things that weren't about work accomplishments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I could talk to this friend or text this person or have some kind of tea or whatever. And then it would be to write an affirmation for myself or write a positive affirmation.
You did this
And
every
I,
single morning?
girl, otherwise, listen, I didn't go in the
Okay.
office, so I couldn't physically harm somebody else. So all I would do is somehow do something harmful to myself, right?
Okay.
And
So you had to find some kind of peace and calm and some kind of balance there.
this is just step 1, right? So I'd figure out some kind of positive affirmation, and then I would then put that aside, and then I'd move on to my morning pages, which was 3 pages of free form, just mental vomit onto a page, right? Whatever I was thinking, no punctuation, no nothing, just three pages, free form writing, just to get all the garbage that had been running through my brain through the night
Mm-hmm.
out. And a lot of times it would be to-dos. I'd write them somewhere on the side and just keep going. Then I would stop, put my little reading glasses on, and then I would read something sort of self-developmentally, developmental, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but positive, not like productivity. Like this book that I'm reading now, Your Brain on Art. This wouldn't have been the topic probably at the time, but something kind of rejuvenating,
Okay.
something
Okay.
positive. And I'd read for a little while. And I'd do at least those 3 things every morning for like an hour and a half in my bed, with my cup of coffee. I could, if I didn't do those things, I couldn't even, because I then have to, because, I was a leader, right? I'd have to get on a camera and smile and be positive and act like I'm good for them, do all that
Yeah.
for,
Oh my God.
12 hours. So,
So you have to cheer other people on, but first you have to cheer people on and encourage them and let them know that they can do it. And the goals that are set forth, you have to like put forth that image that I believe in you, but first you have to like really build up and believe in yourself and get your own self started in the
yeah.
morning. Yeah.
But what I've realized is that like those are actually really good routines even for me now. It's just that it's not as necessary. Like I don't need it in order to face the day, but I like to do some of those things. So like not every day, but at least a couple days a week. Like I did it today. I did my little 5 minute, so today my little 3 things I was grateful for. I did my little reading. I didn't do my morning pages today, but I do those on other days. And a lot of like one of the things that I do is I mean, if you could imagine, I did this for years. I had so many pages of written work. So what I would do is I would take those written pages and I would put them in my underpaintings. So like
Okay.
a lot of the paintings, especially things like, so here's one. A lot of the paintings, especially like the acrylic abstracts, my journal pages are in here.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
sometimes you can see some of the words, sometimes you can't, but so I always feel like I'm literally in my art because like
Wow.
it's in there.
Okay, so let's okay, wow. So let's back up because I'm just like, oh, this
Okay.
is we're going deep, and then I'm like, this is good, but also I need to back up here because we need to like get the full picture here.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
full picture. Yes.
As I
Okay,
take
so
a sip of tea.
yes, I'm like, oh, okay. So you started originally in Philadelphia, correct?
West Philadelphia, born and raised, baby.
I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it, but yeah, I was like starting to think of Fresh Prince of Bel Air. But anyway, okay. But I wasn't gonna start dancing, chair
I
dancing.
I am a Philly girl. I'm a Philly John.
Okay, okay. And do you feel like you were always a creative, or was that something that developed over time?
I would say if you ask me off the top of my head, I would say no. But going back to my childhood, um, I if I think broadly about creativity, which I do think about creativity more broadly now, um, and that's what I think I would challenge all of us to think about creativity broadly as
Mhm.
creative expression. Yes, I was a nerdy little girl in the hood,
Okay.
um, who I sang and I danced. I sang in everything. I sang in a lot of I was a musical theater kid. I sang in barbershop quartets.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I had a thing. I loved harmony. So like I remember, I grew up on oldies and all that kind of stuff. I had
Yeah.
a thing for a period of time. And I don't know why, my ADHD goes way back, when I went and got my assessment or whatever. I had fixations on certain things at periods of times. I remember falling in love with the Beach Boys. Don't ask it. But
Okay.
it was about the harmonies.
Okay.
And I went to this nerdy little school in Philadelphia, the Julia Reynolds Masterman Laboratory and Demonstration School, y'all. Um, and they had a barbershop quartet. So I sang in the barbershop quartets. I danced with the Philadelphia Dance Company, Philadanco. Um, but that was probably the extent of my sort of creative expression. And,
Mhm.
by the time I hit high school, I was too cool for that. My body didn't look like a dancer's body by then. And even though I had been invited to join the training company for the dance school, that was where the perfectionism. So for me, it was like, well, if I can't look like a dancer and I can't be that kind of dancer, then I don't want to dance at all anymore. So
Okay.
instead, I'm gonna cut school and go party, So
So then
I
you
be, I be
transition.
so I became a nerdy juvenile delinquent um, as an
Okay.
alternative, and then it was, when you're a quote unquote gifted kid, right? It all becomes about going to school and getting an education. I grew up in a family of union people.
Hmm.
Pennsylvania was a big union state, um, and you grow up in the hood. The whole thing is get a good job with good benefits, right?
Yeah.
And I did have the benefit of growing up while we grew up. Um, I guess on the books, poor, broke. Um, my experience was not of a broke person. Um,
Okay.
we had my mother could make a dollar out of 15 cents, and we had multiple dollars worth of cultural experiences growing up. And so I knew the way that I wanted to live. And I somehow always sort of knew that I would take care of me
Okay.
and that I would take care of me better than anybody else could. And so that meant living, working a certain way in order to live a certain lifestyle. So, I guess I put away childish things and went to college, got an MBA, did the corporate thing. And I don't know where there was joy. I mean, I had great friends or whatever. I traveled, things looked
When was your
good.
first? When was your first? Um, what city most impacted you in the U.S.? And then I want to know where you went to outside of the U.S. that was like, oh wow, I'm liking this.
What city in the US most
What?
impacted
Yeah,
me?
yeah. What city was like, kind of like gave you like that first like, oh, I want to discover more of the U.S. And then what city or what country, whatever, maybe impacted you outside?
I don't know that I ever had an experience in the US where I was like, oh, I want to experience more of the US. I was, because I was more of a, I was more of a, oh, what's new and shiny, right? Because
Okay.
that's my flavor of ADHD was, okay, this is boring. What else is out there, right?
Okay.
So all my moves were usually based on like so after, for instance, when I went back to graduate school and got my MBA, the last thing I wanted was a job, right? I knew that I didn't want to commit to one job to do one thing every day over and over again. Like, kill me now. And so I wanted to do something that was and I'd done consulting before. I wanted to do something consulting or something consulting like, right?
Okay.
And so I ended up in the health insurance industry directly and sort of stayed in health insurance, healthcare, medical devices, things like that. But I
Okay.
ended up working for a health insurance company in a leadership development program where I was kind of like an internal consultant. So I got to like every year and a half, I got to change jobs. Wonderful. You mean I don't have to commit to nothing? Lord, that
You
was the
stay in the
best for me.
honeymoon phase longer. Yeah, you stay in the
For
honeymoon phase.
forever. By the time I get to know everybody and realize I don't like them no more, once I have figured out how things work and I know what I'm doing, I get to move on to something else. And so my moves were generally based on a new job, a new opportunity. And then later on in my career, it was, a person I worked with or consulted for would call me and say, hey, Dara, we have a new opportunity. Would you be willing to come and do this? And I'd be like, oh, I don't know anything about that or anything about that city. Sure, sign me up. So
Okay.
that was usually the driver for me.
Okay. So I know that you said that you lived in Maryland the longest, or that was, yeah, your longest in your adult
The
life as
DC
far as
metro
your,
area.
okay.
That was
Okay.
usually the place I went back to, right? So it
Okay.
was, after I graduated undergrad, it was DC. And then after that, it was Jersey and then Maryland. and then Atlanta, and then Maryland,
So
and
Maryland was
then
like your pseudo home base in a sense.
yeah, and then Pennsylvania, and then I don't know, a bunch of other places,
Okay.
Phoenix, and then Boston, and then yeah, a bunch of places.
Okay. So, okay, now, but when you first, I say your first international trip, where was that to?
I don't know, a bunch of islands. So nothing
Okay.
really, really, nothing really fancy. Bunch of islands.
Okay.
When I was an undergrad, I was supposed to go study at University of Salamanca. I got the idea my senior year of college, was all set, and then the trip got canceled because they weren't paying the host families, and it was my last chance. And so I didn't get to go. And I at that point I was a Spanish minor,
Hmm.
and I remember I had gotten to the point where I was starting to have like dreams in Spanish. I had so many
Wow.
Spanish classes, but then they canceled the
Okay.
trip. And, at that point, it was like, well, now I got to go back. I got to go into the real world. So that whole thing of learning Spanish, because it was all tied to that trip, it just went away. Never
Oh,
thought
wow.
anything of it
So no
again.
more dreaming in Spanish after
No,
that?
I
Oh,
no.
wow.
I mean, I even lived in Phoenix for a couple of years, and it never occurred to me to talk to anybody in Spanish, to learn Spanish. I didn't remember anything. I had friends
Wow.
who spoke Spanish. Um, Again, I am very, flittery. Like I get very passionate about a thing, and then it's like, okay, that was interesting. Phoenix, it was martial arts. I went to um oh, because here's again, I've done so many random things, Yolanda.
Okay.
It's hard for me to even remember.
So unlike me. Okay.
When I lived in Phoenix, there was a serial rapist in the valley. I was the operations manager for a call center there, and a local dojo came in to teach self-defense. I went in to thank them for helping our employees. I was like, oh, I always wanted to take martial arts, but I was dancing when I was a kid. And she was like, oh, why don't you come in and take, 2 free weeks of classes? Next thing you know, I'm on a trip to China to train with the Shaolin monks, and I had my purple belt awarded to me by the head abbot of the Shaolin Temple.
I don't know what all that means, but it's, I should be pretty impressed. Okay.
But it's
I
it's
feel like
so
it's pretty
random.
darn important. Yeah.
It
Okay. I'm like,
it is. But it's just a perfect example of some of the random things that I have done, and I would have probably like that's an international trip that I wouldn't have thought about if I hadn't thought about
but the
Phoenix.
thing is, when you think about it, it's like I love the bottom line is you are open to new experiences.
Oh,
You are not someone that's like, oh, I shouldn't like somewhere in the brain is not like telling you like you better not do that. You're like, you know what? I'm going to try. You're just open to new experiences, and that's a great thing. That's a great thing. And some people definitely. I mean, my mom. Let me just a little random example my because of I'm surprised at the way that I am because I remember growing up as a kid, my mom had this cookbook, like this old school cookbook, and I was just so intrigued with it. And she was like, "Why you want to cook out of that cookbook? Just leave that cookbook alone." It was like, love my mother, make no mistake, but it was just in that mindset that was not necessarily encouraging for me to be like, go out and just try all the random things and stuff. But I knew somewhere within me that, like, I remember because we had the biggest backyard in our neighborhood, and I wanted to
hmm
build a whole stage so we can do a live performance of Good Times.
oh, okay,
My mom was like, girl, no. I was like, well, we could build a stage. So yes, I've always had that I guess whether you want to call it flighty or just like curiosity or whatever,
curiosity.
it was not necessarily it wasn't something that my parents leaned into or like fed into and was like, yes, let's support this, all of her big crazy ideas, which I understand, different time, whatever. But yeah, I'm some people should not be that surprised that I do random things. I may not be flying off to China to get to get my award for my purple belt or whatever. No, but and I'm not jumping out of any airplanes. But yeah, I do
I
different
could
things on my
never
own
get
terms.
anybody to do it with me. I could never get anybody to go with me.
I'll go
That
to
was
the
my
museum
problem.
with you. That's it. That's it. I'll meet you at a museum. That's all you got from me, girl.
Yeah,
We'll,
I have always been the, and that's, again, when I got diagnosed with ADHD, it made my whole life make sense
hmm
because I've had a lot of friends. You grow up in Philly, and a lot of people, some people, some people think of Philly as like a major metropolitan city or whatever. Philly is a big town, a big small town. That's all it is. That's a
hmm
big small town. Um, a lot of people from Philly, like a lot of other small towns, never really left Philly.
Okay.
Some eventually moved away, but they sort of stayed. I always thought of it as very sort of provincial place. Um, and years ago, again, now more of my friends have left and moved to other places. They used to be like, "Oh my God, you're so brave for moving." And I'm like, "Brave? I'm just bored." Like, but I now know that, my spicy little brain needed new things, new shiny things to light up. It needed that dopamine hit. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is, I've had more sports equipment. I was in a women's soccer league. There was rollerblading. I mean, there were so many things that I took so seriously for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Um, Doing creative things, making art now has been probably the thing I've been most interested in for the longest amount of time on a sustainable basis.
So when you
And
first got, okay,
even
how
I'm
long ago did you
surprised.
get into the art? How long ago did you get into like more being more creative on the art side? How long ago was that?
That was probably 2000. Ooh, girl, years? I don't know.
Okay.
Um, it was trying to think. It was after my mom passed. It was after I had gotten let go from a job. I was sick. I'd left Boston. So maybe that was 2016.
Okay. All right. So
It's
it's
the
still,
first
I
time,
mean, it's still relatively new and fresh.
brand new, brand new. I
Okay.
had never picked
Okay.
up a paintbrush, didn't care to, didn't. Now I will, and I'm not exaggerating. This is one of the reasons I like to go on like retreats with like other people that are geeky about art stuff.
hmm
I will try a new set of like watercolors or an acrylic paint or something, and I'll dip my paintbrush in it for the first time and like wash it across a canvas or a piece of watercolor paper. And if I see the way, like watching the way the color moves across the page, my stomach will flip a little bit.
So I'm looking at, because
Like the way,
I'm on
like
Instagram
like
right
the
now.
way, like the way it once did about some little trifling man. No, I mean, I'm dead
I get it.
serious.
Yeah, I get it. I
I'm
get it.
dead serious. And it's so less toxic and it lasts longer.
hmm
I'm only exaggerating a little bit, just a little
Just a
bit.
little
No, but
bit.
serious, like just a little bit. But like
The joy of it. Yeah.
oh, oh, um, and I'm like, how did I not have this all my life? And I don't regret it. I don't regret it because the
hmm
life that I led has afforded me the life I have now.
Yeah.
so I
And
don't regret
so
it.
you went to Italy. So we met up. If you didn't hear it at the beginning, we met up in Madrid last
Mhm.
year in May, and then from there, how long was the? Because then you went to Italy to study with a lady some art. You took art classes in Italy, and how long was that
Yes,
process or that
it was
journey?
it was it was only a week and a half of a it was like an art retreat. It was only a week and a half
Okay.
long. Um,
Hmm.
but it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Um, can you see me? Oh, you were frozen for a minute. I don't know if that was me.
Okay, I didn't know if that, yeah, let me know. I
It
don't know
was
if I'm frozen
wonderful.
because
We
I'm not
stayed in
getting any
this
notices, but am
restored
I frozen or is she frozen? I don't know. I'm I'm here. I'm here.
am I okay now?
Unless yeah, you're good.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So it was only a week and a half long. Uh we stayed in a little town that was just on the Umbria side of the Tuscany Umbria line, a little small town.
Okay.
Um, it was beautiful. We stayed in this restored um, villa that was, a hotel, and we painted every day. We went on tours. Like we went to like an uh, uh, I mean, it was just I'm like overwhelmed. I told you I'm never at a loss for words, but I am now because I'm just sort of overwhelmed with the experience of it. Um,
I just shared your Instagram because I'm looking at some of your artwork here on Instagram that you've shared, and it's just your artwork on Instagram does not speak to somebody that I don't know. It just seems like something that you've been doing like all your life. It's beautiful.
oh my gosh! And let me just say, I my Instagram, I have so many more things that I want to post and should post. Even my Instagram account, I started as an anonymous account. And I think if you scroll all the way down to my first Instagram post, it is
Mhm.
literally the first drawing I've ever made. The first drawing I ever made,
I'm
like in
scrolling.
my life. It was a picture I took out the window. I think I'd taken the train all the way from Boston, which
Oh,
is crazy, back into Philadelphia, and it was a picture out the window, and it was on a teeny tiny little piece of paper like this big, and I just sketched it on like the little pad at the hotel. It's the first drawing I ever did,
okay. I'm
and
looking
I
at
was
it.
just
Yeah.
like, but it was like an anonymous account. Nobody knew it. Didn't have my name on it, and I didn't put my name on that account till years later. What happened was I started finding. Oh God,
That was
okay.
back in
I probably should back up.
2018. That was back in
Yeah, it was 2000.
2018.
Okay, yeah. So it was yeah. So then it probably was about 2017 that I started digging into this, and it was all because I lost my job. I had been diagnosed with autoimmune disease, which I
Hmm.
now am not sure that I actually have. Doctors aren't really sure that I actually have it now. But
Okay.
I left Boston. I'd moved in with my sister temporarily because I wasn't sure where I was going to be working. So it was like I don't want to get a place. And my sister would go off to work every day, and I'd just be sitting at home waiting for her to come home so I could have somebody to play with, me and my dog. Um, and I started watching YouTube. Never watched YouTube in my life. Somehow the algorithm gods fed me a YouTube video about something called art journaling. And at the time, I had been doing a lot of journaling, just writing. Trying to just figure out like how did I get here, right? Like, the job I was coming from, I was vice president of product development for this startup. It had almost driven me to death. I stayed way too long, had no
As we tend to
boundaries.
do. Yeah.
And one of my friends who I've known forever, a guy I used to date, as a matter of fact, he's like, because you do the most. He's like, why are you doing the most? I don't know how to not do the most, right? but and I was, I was like just journaling, trying to figure out what is wrong with you. I've been to enough therapy. I'm like, I don't need no more therapy. It's the answers are in here. So I'm just journaling, journaling, journaling. So I get this YouTube video about something called art journaling. And I'm like, what is this? And it's these women, mostly like middle-aged white women who
Mhm.
are journaling in these little books, and they have like little fine liner pens and watercolors, and some of them are like doodling, and they're putting watercolor on a page, and they're like, sometimes there's stickers, sometimes there's washi tape, which is like this little decorative Japanese tape, um, and sometimes they're just mostly writing on these colored pages, and I'm like, oh, it's aesthetically pleasing, but it's still
Mhm.
just, mostly words. And but then some of them are fancier, some of them are using collage, some of it's more artistic, but it's just
It
pretty to
sounds like
watch.
like a art journaling sounds like, I mean, as you're describing it, it sounds like what is that? Like scrapbooking for the soul, like as you're writing down it. Yeah.
Yes, and
Okay.
some of it was very much scrapbooking, right? Some of them were, it was more like they would, some people would take pictures of their kids or what they did for the day. Some of them would draw what their food that they ate. It kind of depended on like what a person was into. And it was just really interesting kind of
Wow.
watching the different ways that people did it. And I was just, I was sort of just burnt out and lazy, and I'm like laying around, just scrolling through videos, watching people do this stuff. So one day my sister comes home and she throws a Amazon box at me, and I'm like, "What's this?" And she's like, "Well, you're sitting around watching all these damn videos all the time. Why don't you do it? Do it yourself." And she had bought me this little watercolor travel kit, and that literally was the start of everything. And we cleared off the dining
Wow.
room table in her house, and we sat down, and I had no idea what I was doing. And um, I put some watercolor on a page, and then I started journaling over the pages. And I'm like, oh, this is, pretty. And I like the way that this is going to sound so bizarre. I like the crinkle that the watercolor gave to the page. It was like a sensory
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
Weird. Um, and then we ordered washi tape, Japanese washi tape. And then we would edge the pages in washi tape. And I was like, oh, that's pretty. Then that led me into like these watercolor tutorials. And so then I do the tutorials, and I'm like, oh, okay, I did that. That was pretty. But who cares what it looks like? It was fun, right? And then it
Yeah.
just snowballed
It's
from
just
there.
went from there. It's just so
Mm-hmm.
in a way, it's this was your therapy, your reset. It kind of you feel
100.
like it, yeah, it brought you through to whatever the next
100%.
steps were. But wow, okay, okay. And so
100%.
you did the retreat in Italy. Where else have you done like these art retreats at? Have you done them in other places around the world, or are you planning to?
I have. I have. I would say the most impactful one that I ever did. So one of the, watercolor was the thing I started out with. And then I
Hmm.
thought I was going to, and I liked watercolor. Watercolor is a challenging medium in the sense that um, it's hard to control. So it was a good thing for me to start with because, babe, my whole life has been about controlling,
Like,
you know,
yeah, like I'm drawing
right?
outside the lines. I'm painting outside the lines. It's okay.
Listen, that watercolor is going to do what's going to do, right?
Yeah.
And for me, my whole life had just been about keeping an image and wearing a
Mm,
mask. And the watercolor's like, all right, baby, you can pretend to, but here's what I'm going to do. And then, when I tried my hand at drawing, and I was like, oh, this is kind of, I thought I was going to learn like the proper techniques of drawing and all of that. And then I realized that wasn't really fun. And then I sort of stumbled upon, there's this woman called Flora Bowley, a white woman in Oregon, crunchy granola ish. And she makes these beautiful, beautiful abstract paintings, usually with like birds or women, just kind of embedded in them, lots of layers, kind of dreamy. Um, And I started watching some of her tutorials, like some of her free content on YouTube. Then I took an online class with her, and she was doing acrylics, and that was my first time using acrylic paints. So I started following her, and she then put out a casting call. She was filming a new extended um, tutorial. So she put out a casting call for people to be in the tutorial. Um, and I was like, oh, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna be in this tutorial. So, she's like, record your 2-minute video or whatever. So I recorded my video and I was like, hi, my name's Dara. Looking forward to meeting you because you're gonna be picking me for your tutorial. Here's
Mhm.
why. Ran it down. And I think she had like 250, 300 applicants. She picked 10. I was one of the 10.
Mhm.
Um, Flew out to Oregon to this beautiful studio. Um, so that was my first official art retreat. Beautiful, amazing. That was one of the,
Wow.
and you can't really tell. It was like an experimental thing, and it's like one of my favorite poems that's kind of written in this graffiti on this background. But anyway, um, so I made some artwork there. She and I really hit it off, and she was like, "Oh, well, we're going to stay in touch. We're going to get connected." I'd say about a year and a half, maybe later, she reached out to me and she was like, "Hey, I'm doing a retreat, and I could use need some assistance. Would you be willing to come on this retreat with me to help me out with some of the logistics, and I'll pay for your stay, I'll pay for room and board and all this kind of stuff." And I was like, "Oh yeah, bet." Where's it going to be? Bali.
Oh.
So so I was responsible for only paying for half my airfare.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, so I got to spend a couple weeks in Bali doing stuff like, I mean, it was light work. And basically what I was paid for was to be myself and kind of keep everybody kind of going, and whatever. It was herding cats, was a group of women, but I got to participate in the retreat, and I got to go to Bali for the first time. It was fabulous.
Wow.
So that was probably my most impactful art retreat that I ever went on. But then now I paid for a have I paid for a couple? So there was Italy. Oh, and then this past year, because I had let's see, we're a little bit past my anniversary. Last year, October 18th, 2024, I had a
Mhm.
stroke on a plane
Okay.
on
Yeah.
my way to Thailand. And so after that, I was like, how about I just blow all this money? Because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. And so I planned some fabulous trips. I had a friend who moved to the Netherlands, and I helped him and his wife plan some last minute details. So as a gift, he bought me a ticket to the North Sea Jazz Festival. And at this point, whenever I have a trip, I'm always going to turn it into a bigger trip. And a mutual friend of ours, Kathy, what's Kathy's last name? Kathy in Portugal, Kathy
Uh.
Hampton,
Oh, okay.
Kathy
I'm like, I'm,
Hampton.
I'm like my Kathy here in Zaragoza, Spain. Wait a minute. I know a couple of Kathys. Wait a minit. Okay. Okay.
No, no,
Yeah.
no.
Kathy
Kathy,
Hampton.
Kathy Hampton in Portugal.
Mm.
She had turned me on to a company called Vacation Away with an Artist. And I thought she was telling me about it as a thing for me to go on. And she was like, "No, you should be hosting these things." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe one day." But there are these artists all over the world who will teach you their art. It's a
Okay.
fabulous thing. Um, any kind of any kind of skill that they might have, they're all over the world, different artisans. You can go and spend time with them in their studio and learn their craft. So whether it's
Okay.
like some sort of artisanal paper making in Japan, knife making, uh, uh,
I want to know like cheese
weaving
making.
here, anything, anything.
Okay. What is okay? I'm sorry.
Um,
I have to look that up. I'm like, wait a second.
It's VAWAA, Vacation Away with an Artist. And so they're independent contractors, and they base it's almost like the Airbnb experiences, but on
Mm-hmm.
steroids. And so I was like, well, I'm going to the Netherlands. Let me see if I can find one. So I found a woman in The Hague in the Netherlands who made abstract art, and I went and spent was it a week, I guess, with her. And she had a guest room in her house, so I stayed with her in her house. She had a beautiful studio, and we painted. I learned different techniques with her, hung out with her and her husband. Her husband did a fish fry. We went on a part of what she included was a tour to a museum. Like literally, my if I'm not in
That
my
sounds
house either
amazing.
napping, it was absolutely amazing. So like this past year I've been doing quite a bit of traveling
Okay.
after I had the stroke, which came out of nowhere.
Okay,
um
so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I'm not going to go deep in, but I said I would wait until you brought it up. But I did have a couple of questions I wanted to just understand um,
yes,
what that kind of looked like and stuff. So, and I'll respect the boundaries and stuff. So I'm not going to be all up in her business in every detail, but I will ask a few questions. You were on your
girl, I'll
way.
tell you before you even ask.
You were on your way to. You said you were on a flight to Thailand.
Mhm.
How long
Yes.
into the flight was it when you started to feel something was wrong?
So yeah, it was all sort of it all happened in the best way that a person could possibly have a stroke. If I put it that way.
Okay, please do expound. Okay.
Um, so I left Mexico City. I went to Maryland to meet because it was this was again. I will use any excuse. My sister had a business trip to the Philippines.
Mhm.
She didn't even want to go because she didn't want to do the planning, and I was like, "Oh, contraire, mon frere, I will do the planning." Right? Um, and we will turn because she after being a person who worked in consulting, you take advantage of paid business trips, right? So I'm like, you
Yeah.
have a paid trip to the Philippines. Your company's paying for what will be our hotel in Manila. I will figure out all the details, and then while we're there, honey, why don't we just hop over to Thailand, and we're gonna make this a real trip. So because living in Mexico, there's sometimes things I'll buy in the US that I can't get here. And
Hmm.
so there were some things that I wanted to pick up. So I flew to Maryland to kind of get some of those things that I had ordered. And then I was going to fly with her from Maryland over to Manila.
Hmm.
And the first leg of the trip was from DC to San Francisco, and then from San Francisco to Manila. That was the
Okay.
the trip itinerary. And it was on the flight from DC to San Francisco that I had the stroke.
Okay. Okay. So you were still in the U.S. when it
And
happened.
yes, yes.
Okay.
And I happened to be awake, which was and I because I started to fall asleep and this crazy movie was on, and I credit a scene in the movie for waking me up because it was so crazy and surreal. And matter of fact, I don't even credit the well, I credit the movie. I credit De La Soul because there was a De La Soul song that came on at this point in the movie. I actually have a whole series of artwork that I haven't yet posted to Instagram, but I plan to tag them and to include the song because literally I think I'm alive because of that damn song. Because the song came on and it was such a crazy juxtaposition in the movie that it woke me up because I was like drifting off because I was like, this movie's stupid. It was kind of violent. I didn't really want to. And then the song came on and it was like, it took me right back to being in like 11th grade. The song came on and it woke me up. And I was like, what is the movie Civil War that came out a couple years ago?
I don't know.
I, what,
I don't know.
when I posted to Instagram, I'm a forward the post to you so that I make sure that
Okay.
you see the reel. Because I'm gonna post it soon. Um, but that song woke me up, And I actually rewound the movie to watch it from the beginning because I was like, if this movie dug in the crates and found that song for the soundtrack, this movie has to be better than what I'm thinking it is.
Okay.
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 It was like a war political movie. And so I stayed up and watched the movie. The movie ended. I'm looking for another movie because at this point I'm wide awake because the movie ended up being good. And then I feel this weird sensation. It wasn't pain or anything. It was a lot of turbulence. And I was like, oh, I feel a little weird. And it was like a little, it was like the feeling of a flower bud opening. Only thing I can describe. It's like a rose is like a closed rose. If you imagine a rosebud, and then
Mm-hmm.
the gentle opening of it.
Oh
That it's like there was a
wow.
rosebud at the back of my neck, and it opened. It was super super gentle. So that's why I say I credit that song in that movie for the fact that I'm alive. Because if I had been asleep, that would not have woken me up. That's how gentle it was.
Okay.
And I said to my sister, I said, I feel weird. And I went to go, I borrowed her water bottle, went to pour some water, and my hand was shaking. And I said to her, I think I'm having a stroke. And I don't know why I thought that, but I did. And she said, what? And I said it louder, and then I could hear myself slurring. And
Oh
so then
wow.
I just pushed the call button, and the flight attendants came and they were like, at first they're like, oh, turbulence, only push if it's real emergency. So I pushed it again. And they came up and they were like, ma'am, what seems to be the problem? And I was like, I believe I'm having a stroke. And they just kind of looked at me and they were like, excuse me? I said, I believe I'm having a stroke. And so then the doctor came up and, they called to see if there was a doctor on the plane. The doctor came up and sat next to me and he was like, what seems to be a problem? I explained my symptoms. And he had me squeeze his hand with my right hand and lift my right knee. That was fine. And he was like, okay, squeeze my hand with your left hand. And I went to do it and I couldn't. And I was like, that's weird, because I told my hand to do it and it didn't. And I couldn't lift my leg. So everything was paralyzed on my left side.
Wow. Wow.
It was freaky.
Do you know how far, like how far were you guys from landing in San Francisco?
We we had we had 2 hours, about 2.5, almost 2.5 hours left on the flight.
Oh my goodness.
So, but the thing was, so we talking to the doctor, he was like, look, exactly when you had the stroke, unlike a lot of stroke victims. He's like, so I would advise that we go to San Francisco because he knew that the hospital there, he's like, I practice in San Francisco. There's a hospital right at the airport. They have a premier stroke trauma unit. If you were my sister or my wife, that's where I would suggest that you go. Because if we land now, I don't know where we are. I don't know what their facilities are. I don't know what their expertise is. And I was like, bet we going to San Francisco. And so, I knew because, I do random things. One of the random things I've always been interested in, especially after I got diagnosed with ADHD, I became kind of fascinated with the brain and neurology.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to read a lot of books about the brain because I'm a nerd. And so I knew the number one thing I needed was oxygen. So like we had, they were giving me oxygen. So I was sucking that oxygen like the biggest coke fiend, just sucking it in. Like by the time we landed, I think I'd finished off like 2 cans of oxygen. And so in between, he and I were just chatting. I was talking about art and living in Mexico and retiring early and sucking
So
on oxygen. The flight
you were awake the whole time, leading
Girl, I was running
like
my
from
mouth the whole time. I was running
okay.
my mouth. The flight attendants were coming by. They were like, are you okay, ma'am? Can we get you anything? And I was like, can I have a cranberry juice? I was
So it's
fine.
the thing is, of course, what you see in movies or what you hear about the most detrimental part of a stroke and everything. So to hear this other scenario of how it happened and what transpired is just so very different than what people would think would be happening. And so I mean, and don't get me
Well,
wrong, so happy that you're okay and that that you're on the other side of just talking about it and sharing your experience. But it is quite. I'm surprised, quite frankly. I'm very surprised that a stroke can happen in so many different ways that people just kind of see it in one way of happening, and this is something different.
yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to explain it. I I'm that person who I will ruminate over and have anxiety about the smallest things. But give me a stroke, piece of cake. I mean, and that sounds flippant,
How was your
but I
sister
don't
doing
mean to
during
be
this time?
flippant. She's just staring at me. She's just
Okay.
staring at me. Um, and then at some point, she got mad because the flight attendants were like, they were asking me, bringing me drinks and stuff. She's like, "Well, can I have a damn ginger ale?" You know. Um, and I don't, like I said, I don't mean to be flippant about it,
Hmm.
but
Was there
there's
more
a
fear
part of
afterwards?
me.
Do you feel like
No,
maybe there was
I
more
didn't
any
have any
fear
fear.
afterward? Oh, okay. Yeah, because I don't know. I didn't know if like after, like in the moment, you're like, oh, okay, well, we're going through this, and I don't know, maybe a week or two or a month later, being like, oh God, I just went through something serious or something pretty intense. There was never that feeling. Okay.
Mm-mm,
Okay.
mm-mm. I guess I just always. I guess there's a part of me. I don't think that I'm any more special than anybody else, right?
Hmm.
Bad things happen to people every day. Why would it not happen to me? Um,
Yeah.
and and also that is something I literally have no control over. How can I say this? I guess it's sort of like if there's something I have no control over, I relax into it because I've spent so much of my life worried about trying to control and manage the outcome of every other thing in my life that when I have no control over it, child, it ain't when I know that there ain't shit I can do about it, I just let it go. I completely
Okay.
just let it go. So it was to the point that I remember somebody even saying to me like, "Oh, you had a TIA, like a transient ischemic
Hmm.
stroke," and I'm like, "No, I had a legit. Like I was in the ICU." Um, it didn't feel to me as serious as it was. So like on the plane, again, I'd done so much reading about neurology. Whatever. Don't even ask me why. Anything that was like your brain on anything, like your brain on
Hmm.
religion, your brain like it was fascinating. I mean, I remember even because after I got diagnosed with ADHD, I remember thinking to myself, if I had known this, like this is the kind of thing that I probably would have studied neurology in school. Like that's how much I found it interesting about the
Okay.
brain. So as I'm sitting there talking to the doctor, chatting with him, sipping my cranberry juice, sucking on the oxygen, I would like take a big hit of oxygen and then I would try to move my hand. Knew I couldn't move it, but I would tell myself to move my hand. And I could, the more oxygen I took in, I could feel my brain start to tingle. I know this is gonna sound
Hmm.
weird.
Hmm.
Um, you know how like you know how here's a good way to explain it. You know how you fall asleep on your arm
Yeah.
and your arm goes to sleep
Yeah.
and
Hate
and
that.
you're
Yeah.
like trying to get it to wake up and as it's waking up it's like tingling.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's what my brain was doing.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I could feel those little tingles in my brain. And I kept doing it. And I would take a big inhale of oxygen, and I would try to move my hands. And slowly but surely, well, I guess I actually started with my leg. I would try to wiggle my toes. And then I would feel the pins and needles in my toes because I started with my leg. And eventually I got my leg back completely while I was sitting there.
Okay. Okay.
And it was like
Well, that's
I
good.
could feel my brain reconnecting with my leg every time I
Wow. Okay.
tried. So by the time we landed, the paramedics came on. They're, questioning me, they're questioning the doctor, trying to get the story of how everything went down, the timing and everything. They're trying to get the gurney on to come and get me. And I'm like, just move, move, move. I'll just walk to the gurney. So I walked off the plane onto the
I'm
gurney.
sorry. I'm just imagining you just like telling, like, get up. Oh, wait, I got it. Jesus.
Because they were taking too long. They were taking too long. I'm like, I could walk now. But I still didn't have control of my arm. I was at the point where I could move my fingers. But what would
Mm.
happen is I would think to move my fingers. And when I would think move my fingers, my elbow would shoot up.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, okay, my brain is rewiring, but the circuits are off. But it was fun because every time I would do that, my elbow would shoot up and it would elbow my sister. And she was like, cut it out. And I was like, Maya, I can't. It's for science. We got to do it.
I'm sorry. Okay, wait a minute. So, how long were you in the hospital in San Diego? I mean, in San Francisco?
8 days.
8 days. Wow. And so, but then you went back home to Mexico City, or did you go back to Maryland for a while? You went back home to Mexico City?
Yep. Went back
Did
to
any
Mexico
family
City.
come with you or anything like that to come back with you?
Mm-mm. No, I mean, this is going to sound so bizarre. So, um, I mean, I was in the ICU the whole time.
Okay.
I actually posted a picture because I never felt as bad as it actually was.
Okay.
But I actually posted a picture that my sister took of me in the hospital bed in the ICU,
I'm going back
so
on
that
your
I would
Instagram.
so that I would remember the reality of it.
Hmm.
Because even in the moment, I never felt the reality of it. Because I guess and again, I think it was because when I was on the plane, I rehabbed myself so effectively.
Hmm.
Like when I got to the hospital, they had to give me the clot buster shot. Eventually, I got my arm back. They didn't even let me have anything to drink. Little did they know, I'm like, I sucked down like a whole quart thing of cranberry juice on the plane because the reality is people have strokes and they lose their ability to swallow. So
Hmm.
but I talked the nurse into giving me some ice chips. Because I was the hit of the stroke unit. Um, which isn't saying much because a lot of people can't talk. I was running my mouth the whole time.
I'm sorry. Aileen just said, sounds like my mom when she had a series of many strokes and she had to get mad so she can get up and walk and help my dad get her to the car. Okay. Yeah, see, y'all be hard headed. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm
Well,
like,
see,
what?
mine wasn't hard headed. It was just that I was actually fine. Like I can only imagine if I had. I guess this actually ties back, I guess, to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, Yolanda. I
Mhm.
was so curious about what was happening in my brain. I wasn't trying to rehab consciously on the
Mhm.
plane. I was
But you knew the inner
curious.
workings.
I was curious about the fact that I'm telling my hand to move and it's not moving. That is so it I was so much more curious than I could have ever been scared because it made
Wow.
me realize that I don't consciously tell my hand to move. My hand just so I'm looking at my other hand and I'm like, it's moving. I didn't realize I was telling it to move. Now I'm consciously telling this hand to move and it's not
And it's not
moving.
moving. Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So I was so much more curious than I could have ever been scared. And then as I'm like doing the oxygen and I'm like, oh my God, it's moving and I can feel like everything. I can feel the rewiring happening. So anyway, get to the hospital. I guess I sort of came back so quickly, and the fact that I walked off the plane, so they're like, well, maybe this bitch didn't have a stroke. So then they're like, well, maybe it was even though it was clearly a stroke. I looked at the
Yeah.
MRI results with the neurologist when I got back here, and it was clearly a stroke. So they gave me a exam where they tested for maybe it was a seizure, like a series of seizures in like close succession. So I just had my hair colored. So mad. They glued all these electrodes onto my scalp.
Okay.
And so this picture that I post, thank God I posted it for myself on Instagram so I can remember that this actually happened. Because I had there's nothing, I never had to go to rehab or anything. The next day, they were like, nope, wasn't a seizure. Guess it was a stroke. But then I had all this glue on my hair. So the next day, I talked the nurse into letting me go in the bathroom and take a shower and wash my hair. So she took all the electrodes off me. I'm in the shower and I keep hearing her like every 2 or 3 minutes. She's on the radio and she's like, no, she's fine. I'm giving her a sponge bath, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why are they bothering her like this? And so I come out and I say to her, I was like, oh, it's so weird. Why don't you all have shower curtains in the bathroom? She looked at me and she was like, ma'am, nobody has ever taken a shower. She's like, you're in the stroke ICU. Nobody's ever taken a shower on this floor. People can't get out their beds.
So okay. So you are in ICU for 8 days at the hospital, and they finally say, okay, we can go ahead and let you release you. You can go,
Right.
and they tell you that you need to follow up with your doctor back home in Mexico. And so you have a plane that just like you leave the hospital, or I mean, are you in the States for a couple of days, or you just like, okay, deuces, I'm out?
No, when I tell you everything lined up in the optimal way possible, when the stroke happened, where the stroke happened, the doctor on the plane, the movie, De La Soul, everything lined up the best way it could have happened. So part of the reason they kept me as long as they did was because they never figured out why I had the stroke.
Okay.
That was the big mystery. I had a spinal tap. They tested me for everything. Was it MS? Was it, never figured out what it was. I happen to have a rare form of, they're not even migraines, they're just headaches. But they were a headache that I never got diagnosed in the US, had them for years. So I happened to have a neurologist here in Mexico City. I went to see her first time. She was like, oh, you have XYZ type of headaches. First time. So luckily I have a neurologist here. So I had somebody I was going to see when I got back to Mexico City. Lo and behold, while I'm in San Francisco, our mutual friend, Rashida, happened to be there for a wedding. So she was like, oh, well, if you stay one extra day, I'll fly back with you.
Okay.
So, because of course I wasn't going on
and
to
you
Thailand.
did tell me that. Yeah.
So
you thought you were still going to Thailand?
No.
Oh,
no,
okay. I was about to
say. No, I'm saying, of course, I wasn't going on to Thailand.
Yeah.
So I sent my sister home because I wanted to just go home and have a day. I've been, people been checking on me every 5 minutes. I didn't heard all kinds of beeps and boops and every day. I just wanted a minute. So I sent my sister home and I was like, why don't you go home, take a couple days and then you can come meet me in Mexico City, whatever. And we got to, let me just also say the where it happened was so important as well, because I'm in the ICU for 8 days. And all I'm thinking to myself is, okay, so I wonder what they're going to charge me getting out this hospital. And all I was
That's
thinking
what I was about to ask you.
Yeah. I was like, I'll just put whatever it is on my Amex. Because at least I'll get Well, no, because I figured they're not going to charge me for the whole thing. Charge me for a portion of it. I'll put it on
Okay.
my Amex. I'll get my frequent flyer points, right? Figure the rest of it out later. Um, and so and when I tell you, I was like the buzz of the ICU unit. So one of the guys was Filipino, but he looked
Hold on.
Mexican. So I call.
Let me just go back and just ask you a really quick question just to make sure and get some clarity on this part really fast. Do you still have US health insurance?
No, but what I did have was I bought US based travel insurance
Okay.
because my US address was based at my sister's house and I was leaving from my sister's house and the trip had started.
Okay.
So my US based travel insurance covered this accident.
Okay. That's what I wanted to
But
find out about.
here's the other key. The hospital was in California. So when my Filipino nurse who had been taking care of me, even though I nicknamed him Cholo because he looked Mexican. So when Cholo was wheeling me down to the checkout, and he was wheeling me to the door, and I was like, wait a minute, don't we need to go to checkout so I can settle up? And he was like, no, you called me Cholo. So he was like, no, fool, you in California. We don't do that. He took me to, I didn't have to pay a dime.
So in California, you don't pay like your deductible before you leave? Wow. Okay.
Goose egg.
That's shocking. So your travel insurance covered it, and
No. But baby, here's the thing. They didn't know nothing about me. All they knew was I didn't have insurance. I told them I didn't have no insurance and I lived in Mexico. And they were like, okay. And they wheeled my butt right to the curb.
oh,
So when I tell you that this was the best of the best of the best of all scenarios,
oh my
both
gosh. Okay.
from a outcome, everything. You couldn't have had. I couldn't have had a better stroke. And I know that sounds crazy to say, but I couldn't have had a better stroke.
Yeah, stroke of luck, stroke. Yeah, okay. Okay.
And and
Wow.
and
Okay.
when we got to the curb, my sister was like, "Well, do you want to call an Uber?" And I was like, "I've been in a hospital bed for 8 days." Well, no, because I mean I had been up and about. I wasn't allowed to leave my room, which by the last couple of days I was quite irritated by. But so I was like, "No, let's walk." So we walked a mile to the hospital. I was just so happy to be outside.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I get it. And you know what? I probably would have been feeling the same way, but I feel like maybe I probably, because it's like I've dealt with bad patients. I took care. I helped to take care of my stepfather. Well, like I helped to take care of a few parents, like in their journeys, and
Hmm.
they were bad patients. Just yeah. And so I'm having some flashback right now. I'm like
But
these.
I'm not a bad patient. Because here's the thing: if I have a splinter, I want the top surgeon. I'm 100% not a bad patient. But there was literally nothing wrong with me.
They gave you the all clear, and you were like, "I'm ready to live life and just jump back in here and do my
There was
regular."
there was literal, and I had friends who like I grew up with, went to college with. One of them is a physical therapist, and she was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
have you started therapy?" I was like, "For what?" Literally, I had no deficiencies. So I had a surfing trip that was scheduled in El Salvador a month later. And like, so when I talked to the neurologist there in San Francisco, she was like, "Oh no, you can't do that or whatever," even though I talked her into taking a sabbatical afterwards. Um, but so when I met with my neurologist here, and she was like, "No, you can go." And I was like, "Oh, you wouldn't be concerned with like, what if I got hit in the head with a surfboard?" And she's like, "It'd be different if we thought it was which I did, by the way. If we thought that it was caused by like a blockage, like a plaque or anything that had
Mm.
broken or loose." She was like, "There was nothing. So to me, I chalk this stroke up to All right, Dara, you were thinking about going back to work. How about we just give you a sign from the universe to sit your butt down, not do
Mm,
that because you don't know how to set boundaries at work, and you just enjoy your life and live off the money you have. And I'm like, okay, universe, that's what I'm gonna do.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear now.
So I
So,
went surfing a month after my stroke and had a fabulous
wow.
time. Of course, I did end up in a wheelchair coming back from the surfing, but I hurt my foot.
So in act okay, so you've always been someone that did things. I mean, you went surfing. Um,
Mhm.
you've always been someone that does different things or do things on your own terms and discover and enjoy. Even though you were living life inside the box as far as the professional side, it sounds like you were definitely stepping out into your own on other sides and trying different things.
Mhm.
And so, do you feel like you've become even more emboldened to try even more things now in the past year, or do you think you kind of like did a soft step back, um, and ready to jump back out again?
Um, I think I felt the need to have to do things before, right?
Okay.
When I was working. I used to get a lot of vacation time. I used to take, I could afford to take unpaid time. So, like, for instance, one of the things, I sail.
Mhm.
So I got into sailing. Um, I'm a part of a group of people will arrange for like a flotilla of sailboats. We'll charter our own boat. So basically, like it's almost like you renting an RV and
Mhm.
driving across country. We do that, but with catamarans and
Okay.
sailboats.
Okay.
Um, and so sailing was one of the things that helped to keep me sane when I was working. And it's kind of like camping on the ocean. Um, and it was something I had to do every year because it would just chill my nervous system out. Um, I love sailing. Um, I'm actually more picky about what I do now because I don't
Okay.
need those things as much anymore because my nervous system is more chilled out. I actually also said I felt physically better after the stroke than before.
Okay.
It
Do
it
you
I
feel
don't
more mentally? Do you feel like, I know that you said physically, is there like a freeing part that's maybe like some kind of mental clarity or emotional clarity afterwards, or is that kind of the same?
I think so. I think the sort of mental clarity that I got after the stroke, I think
Mhm.
that's sort of dissipated, which I which I
Okay.
which I think I anticipated, and that's why I posted the picture on Instagram. I posted that more for myself so I wouldn't forget. Because when you go through something like that, there's that clarity of like, oh, I thought I didn't give a damn about stuff before. You know,
Mhm.
I thought I was more, clear on boundaries and things before, but now I have a real clarity about what really matters and who really matters and things because I didn't have any ill effects, because it almost feels like it didn't happen.
Mhm.
So I think some of the mental benefits of the stroke, if that makes sense, some of the lessons of the stroke, I kind of forget day to day. But no, I mean physically,
Okay.
I sort of felt like I got a hard reset physically after the stroke. Don't ask me what
Wow.
that's about. I had a follow-up appointment with the neurologist, I guess because my case was so weird. So the neurologist in San Francisco, she was like, no fee. But like after a month, can we just have an appointment, like a virtual appointment, just a month after you get out? Because I'm just curious, like to see what your neurologist says. I'm just curious. So we had a call. And I just said to her, I was like, listen, might sound kooky. I said, but do you think that maybe I had like a subclinical level of like inflammation, maybe from just like pent up years of like stress, like and toxic work environment, just stress, self-induced anxiety, stress, whatever, just kind of rumbling around at a low level that just culminated in that moment because I certainly didn't have any stress. Now I was off to Thailand. I was living my best life. And I said, and it just so happened to percolate, maybe I wasn't well hydrated, maybe, whatever. And she was like, it's the best explanation I have. She said, because there's no other clinical explanation that I can find.
Mm-hmm.
And because
Wow.
I really did feel like it was like all the inflammation out of in my body had been wiped out. I was sleeping better. It was really weird. It was
Yeah.
really weird. But I do find myself having to work sometimes when I find myself worrying about things or getting irritated about little things. Like, remember, bitch, you had a stroke. Um, so um, so this
Just to
past
check
year, I
yourself sometime. Yeah.
sometimes so like yeah, like this past year, I've spent a pretty penny. Like when I went to the Netherlands, girlfriend was balling out. I was balling out. My friend that I met over there, he came to my hotel. He was like, "Girl," and my whole excuse
What
this
you
whole past year,
doing?
this whole past year, my excuse has been, I almost died. Almost, almost died. When
And you
I
can't take
was,
it with you. She's like, and you can't take it with you. It's
and you
like
can't take it with.
I'm
Let me tell you, when I was flying back from, and then granted, it was a combination of money plus points, but I'm almost out my frequent flyer points. But now I have spoiled myself to the point where I don't think I can go back. I flew back on British Airways first class. Um,
Yeah, once you do
and
that, it's a game changer.
girl,
Girl.
I mean, I'm used to flying business. I'm used to flying business class, but I think it was also just the experience that we had a bunch of delays in
Hmm.
Heathrow. Delays at Heathrow with British Airways in the Concorde lounge.
Hmm.
It hits different. It hits real different.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The lounges in Europe, period, and stuff are like just way beyond anything in the US. Oh my gosh.
And listen, Amex Centurion lounges are fabulous, but British Airways's
Oh, okay.
lounge, the Concorde
I
lounge
haven't
in
done that yet. I haven't accessed that yet. I haven't flown
girl,
first class yet. I've flown nice business class, but yeah, I
even
aspire.
even KLM flying there, they had a direct flight from Mexico City to Amsterdam, flying on KLM business class. And granted, I used frequent flyer miles. I think I paid out of pocket like $150 for that flight.
Oh, girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a credit card hacker. That's what I do. But I'm almost out of my points. Um so I don't know what I'm gonna do. But
Credit card
I've
hacker
got,
in a good way. And so people, I don't need none of
oh,
the
sorry.
algorithms like ooh, I heard. Yeah, no.
No, no,
Like
no.
she just knows how to work the system.
I know,
We
yes, I
get
know how.
it.
Yes, I strategically accumulated points, hundreds of thousands of points prior to my move to Mexico City. Yeah, so like when I moved here, I probably had 750, 800,000 credit card points.
Wow.
And that's how I have been flying. I mean,
That's a whole
I
other episode that you need to be doing your YouTube chat about that. Or not even
yes.
not even a YouTube chat and everything. So if you need to be offering like, would you like to sign up for this class? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and especially because in like there's that's one of my little things that I like things about the brain. That's something I'm fascinated about. And there should be no surprise that there are legislators that are looking to change some of the policies around credit card point accumulation. There's been some
Yeah.
bills introduced to make changes there because they want to suck any amount of joy that anybody can get out of
Yeah. Somebody
anything.
figured out the system. They're like, oh no, you didn't. What? No, you figured out how to do this at a yeah.
E-
There are ways.
exactly.
So I
Exactly.
wanted to. I know we're gonna have go ahead and get ready to start closing out, but I did want to just touch on to see like, is there after all your experiences, and because you've been in Mexico now for how long? How long have you lived in Mexico now? Mexico City now?
Uh, it'll be 3 years soon.
Okay, okay, oh, okay. Why did I think it had been longer? And stuff. So, what would you say to someone that you know? And right now we're speaking to Black women. We're speaking to Black women. What would you say to that Black woman that knows that feels like she is just probably like work? Because I feel like how I felt, let me just back up and say this. How I felt at my last full time job that I left at the end of 2022 was I felt like I was on the verge of having some major health crisis that they
Mm-hmm.
really didn't give a damn about. They'd be like, oh, that sucks for her.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you think you would give like a younger version of you, your sister, your auntie, somebody that's really like feeling like they cannot. That is not in the cards for them to make such bold moves to get out of that rat race and leave this horrible no good job or horrible no good situation.
Um, I would say, I think the first step is I'm going to tie it back to your question that you asked me about, locating your cozy, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to tie it back to that. Um, I think for me, my first step was finding the joy that I found in creativity. That's not something I ever had in my adult life. And I think that as Black women, I think we lost so early on the ability to play. Um,
Mm,
I think just in American society, that gets taken away from us
hmm.
in general way too early. But for Black women, no ma'am. No ma'am. We don't get that, freedom.
Yeah. And if you dare to, it's like you're like, you have the 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 roof eye, like you're doing too much. It's like, says who? Says
Yeah,
you? Yeah.
we don't get that. So it's almost like, I think that, there was this theory about there is this theory about weight loss. I swear I can come up with the most random analogies for things. But there's this theory about weight loss where that goes about, like, rather than focusing on what you take away, focus on what you add in, right? So rather than trying to deprive yourself, um, look at what you can add in. So rather than, cutting down on calories, add in, one more healthy fruit or vegetable.
Yeah. Add some berries in it and just mix it in. Just yeah.
Exactly, right? So when you're hanging on to, like, the thinnest of threads, do you have something in your life that brings you joy?
Mm.
And I don't mean I don't mean mindless joy like a glass of wine, okay? I mean
That's cool, but
something,
not yeah, but not what we're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
because that's not joy, that's escapism. That's like unhealthy escapism. I found all kinds of ways to escape in unhealthy ways.
Yeah.
Um, Shopping too much, drinking too much, men I wasn't really even interested in, but oh, I
Girl.
hate these stupid things whenever I make different things. Men I wasn't even interested in, but they were weapons of mass distraction. Um,
I love that.
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like a flow state kind of thing. The thing you get lost in. One of the things that's happening nowadays, it's happening very much with, like, Gen Zs. millennials, even Gen Xers are, discovering it, is rediscovering it. But I think Gen Zs are calling it, I think they're calling it grandma hobbies, grandma
Oh, girl.
hobbies.
Okay, so even before I left,
Mm-hmm.
it was like you, so but just finding things to do. Like for me, my joy was um, I used to like to go to the SPCA and volunteer once a week. That was something
Okay.
that brought me joy to go and
Mm-hmm.
take. And I had a cat and a dog at home at the time, so but I went to the SPCA to volunteer once a week, and and help
Mm-hmm.
with adoptions and things like that. That's something that brought me joy. That brought me like, okay, you're doing something that brings you joy and giving to the community and helping these pets and stuff. But now,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, my grandma thing stuff. Even though I am a grandma, is most of y'all know and stuff. I just started learning to sew like 2 months ago and
Right.
went all in. But yeah, finding that joy, finding something that just brings you in the chaos and craziness of the world to find something simple. And it could be that that you get up and go for a walk. It could be, again, some people like are getting into quilting or
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of things. But just finding that joy, that can be like the jump off, that can be the starting point that says, oh, this brings me joy. Well, you know what? I think I deserve a little bit more joy. I
Right.
deserve, and that's like your therapy that might lead up to the big jump off of, get the hell out of my face, you horrible, no good job or horrible, no good partner in my life.
Yeah,
But
I think
starting there and giving yourself permission.
yeah, I think it creates space. It creates mental space and it creates mental quiet. Um, Especially I think as we get older, as a person who, again, looking back on my life after I got diagnosed, it's very clear that I've had ADHD all my life. So that I've always had an inner monologue that has sounded
Hmm.
like at least 4 to 5 people talking at the same time. um, a lot of women start to experience that sort of sensation once perimenopause starts to hit, once you get
Hmm.
that drop in estrogen. Um, and like while Gen Zers will call them grandmom hobbies, um, there's a relatively new area of neuroscience that they call neuroaesthetics. I told you I'm a nerd about this stuff. And it's basically the study of how the arts and creative expression in general impacts our minds and our bodies and our well-being. And they basically done studies to show that something as simple as participating in an artistic type of activity once a month on an ongoing
Hmm.
basis can improve your life expectancy up to like 10 years. You know,
Wow.
they've shown that, like, you look at um, our ancestors, whether they were knitting, whether they were making baskets. Oh, I hate those stupid things that pop up on the screen.
Somebody's
Um,
saying hello and they're agreeing with you, girl. Okay.
no, 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 no. That's no, no. That's what's happening on my screen. Like when I make different symbols, it's a
Oh, okay. I
feature.
thought somebody was like really like cheering you on. I was like, well, somebody's being
No,
happy
no, no,
for
no.
you.
That's not. It's not a StreamYard or YouTube thing. It's something with
Oh,
my. I
okay.
can't. I don't know how to disable it. It happens
Oh,
on
okay.
like virtual doctor's appointments. It's very irritating.
Oh, okay. I'm like, don't be yelling at my guests. Okay.
No, no, no. No, but what happens is, whether they were knitting or making baskets,
Hmm.
there's each one of our fingers has like thousands of uh, sensory like circuits that
Hmm.
drive neurotransmitters to our brains. So, like when your grandmother was knitting a blanket, she was unintentionally generating serotonin that was calming herself down so she didn't kill your grandfather. Real talk. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so these sort of quote unquote old timey things that we did, like the making of things, is really, really important in a way that, like, you know, it's so hard often for people to meditate. Like meditate was an impossibility for me.
Yeah.
But like you give me a piece of watercolor paper and some paint And like I will zone right out. So some people, maybe you can run and you can get into that flow state. But if you can find something to do, and if you can especially find something to do with your hands, and if you think about it, there's some tie between the fact that we're now all so much more attached to our phones and digital media and typing. We don't write anymore. Like so,
Mhm.
like I think in hindsight, one of the like I survived survived because I was afraid of having a heart attack during a conference call. That was part of the reason why I ultimately left, because I was like that I would just get
Same
so
thing.
worked up. But that was why those morning pages and me journaling every morning was so important. That habit, that tactile thing about writing on a piece of paper and touching something. There's something about creating that is so important. So whether you are painting, you're writing, cooking, gardening, knitting, sewing, there's
Yeah.
something about that that actually helps to heal your brain. You're building new neural pathways in your brain. You're rebuilding and you're strengthening the circuits. It even works even if you're not doing it, but you're just appreciating what other people have done. So whether you're
Mhm.
going to a museum, you're listening to music, um, hanging art on your walls, painting your walls, looking at beautiful things, going and that's why plants are even so important.
Mhm.
So like, people talk about aesthetics um in terms of like cinematography when it comes to YouTube and things like that. I think it's really important for us to think, especially women on the brink, to think about the aesthetics of our lives, not in terms of curating an aesthetic view for other people, but curating something aesthetically pleasing for ourselves, but for our brains.
It's healing for us as the
Hmm.
individual, for our own. I don't want to say self-preservation, but yeah, for our joy. It's something that,
Yep.
yeah, again, how are you locating your cozy? Just for
And
you,
think
not for
and
anybody
think of
else.
and think about all of those senses, right? What do you touch? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? Right? Um,
Okay.
and it's like a fascinating field of study, neuroaesthetics. And think about that in contrast to I don't mean no harm. Productivity. I spent so much time reading books about productivity. I am not a product. Pro and this whole field of neuroaesthetics has come about as a counterbalance to the
Mhm.
growth of the field of productivity. And this book that I'm reading is called Your Brain on Art. I'm reading like 7 books at one time. That's what I do. But this book called Your Brain on Art. These two authors, they talk about productivity being an outcropping of the Industrial Revolution. And I'm like, honey, uh-uh. My people, we were they were looking at us prior to the Industrial Revolution as products. And
Oh yeah.
productivity is what we were all about, right? Because we were beasts of burden. And the field of epigenetics, like that, I think that that's probably part of the reason why I was always doing too much. It was in my genes,
Mhm.
you know. Um, so I say put down the books on productivity. Baby, you ain't broken.
Okay,
These
so I have a
people are trying
question.
to turn you into a robot. You are not a robot. You're a creative person, you're a creative being, and that's the thing that I think, and the more you fill up that space, the more you can think about possibilities and find a way to some path of more some form of transformation, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, with that, I wanted to say, first of all, again, I know that you're on Instagram, but also you have your YouTube page. You don't have, see, because we're going to be patiently waiting for you to start posting more content because I know one, she already told me, she's like, I can talk about this forever. And so when are you going to start posting more content on your on your YouTube about all of your different well, the content that you want to share and the type of things you want to talk to people about?
Yeah, I actually am working on a video now. I'm kind of splicing it together, and I started that channel shortly after I had the stroke because I kind
Hmm.
of, I was like, well, I have all these things, I learned all these things from YouTube that kind of helped shape who I am today, and I want to give some of that back. And I think I like four, maybe I think I had four videos out there that I put together, and I really enjoyed making them. I really enjoyed the editing of them, but I realized that they were feeling very sort of overproduced. Um,
Okay.
they felt they didn't feel kind of like this. They
Just
didn't
having a
feel
good
or
normal
they didn't
conversation.
feel they didn't feel organic enough. They felt
Okay.
very much like I was like I put together like a little curriculum and I was teaching something, right? And that's very important. Like that's what I wanted to do because I wanted to kind of give back some of what I got, but it but because it felt so like each one felt so very topic specific and
Hmm.
very sort of lesson specific. Um and I didn't talk about myself enough. Like I was using a kind of a formula
A
almost.
curriculum kind of based conversation, and that's not. Yeah, I get that. I
I
get
kind of
that.
got bored. So what I'm working on now is videos that will probably be a bit like this, a bit random. So I have one that I'm working on now that is just a couple splices of some randomness, and
Hmm.
I figure there's got to be some population of people out there who like random musings about the books I'm reading, the things I'm exploring. I'll share a little bit of what I'm making,
There you go.
share some ideas of what you can make, some things you might want to explore, some things that you might enjoy making. And I'll just play it by ear because I sort of slipped. I felt like I sort of slipped into corporate, like a corporate sort of
Yes.
presentation almost.
I know, I get it, and that's and I'll tell you, this is what I'll never forget Rashida because I knew one, I him and haw, and I never stay on point, and blah blah blah, and everything, and so, but Rashida was like, and then I hate to edit, and so, and I know that you said you actually like editing, that's
I
cool,
do.
but sometimes you can over edit, and so,
Hmm.
and that's when Rashida was like, girl, just go live, just go. I was like, I can't do that because yeah, this gonna really be a hot mess, and she was like, it's fine, it's okay, and so, and I still do going forward. I do plan to actually post more because I have some interviews coming up that are going to be pre-recorded. So I want to take advantage of that.
Hmm.
And I might eventually start leaning away towards the lives and going more towards just posting my like pre-recorded interviews. I don't know. We'll see later on. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's sometimes I know for a fact I have not posted anything on Instagram lately because I have all this footage from being in Lisbon and everything. But I'm like, I feel like I have to have everything, so I'm overproducing, and I'm like, girl, just take a few clips and be done. Walk away. So,
Right.
anyways, we're gonna have to go ahead and go now. I have in Dara's YouTube and Instagram are in the comments right here on the side during the live, and also in the description. You have all of her points of contact, and also you have my points of contact because I did just launch the Travel Buddy Facebook group. I am so proud of that and stuff. And that is
Woohoo!
specifically for women only, women that are going to be traveling in Spain that are looking for a possible travel buddy that they can connect with other women in the community. But also, this is to include not just Spain, but also Portugal and France. So and that is also in the description below. And did I put, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I don't have, it's in the description below. Okay. Yeah, so it's in the description below. I will go ahead. All my content information and contacts is in there. So you are more than welcome. But the Travel Buddy Facebook group, it literally is the Travel Buddy experience. So you can just look that up on Facebook. It is there, and then you can connect and meet women that again want to travel somewhere between Spain, Portugal. I included the two sister countries, so Portugal and France. So please do check that out. Dara, thank you so much. This was very
Thank
insightful.
you.
Man.
Thank
Okay.
you. And like I said, I know I can run my mouth, but this has been great. I appreciate it. And
I
listen, like I
told
said,
you.
I don't have a lot of information, a lot of videos out on YouTube, but if you want to like
Mhm.
actually try your hand at some creative exercises, those I do have there. And then
Okay.
we'll see what I come up with for the future. We'll probably try a couple of different things and we'll see what sticks.
Well, thank you. You guys make sure that you do like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll know the next time I have something wonderful to say. And make sure that you go over there and subscribe to Daraj's channel also. And as always, I do appreciate your support. And yeah, keep being awesome. I love y'all. Stay great.